She stormed up the driveway, phone already in her hand, heels clicking like a countdown. "You can't park here," she barked at my daughter, who had just stepped out of her truck with groceries in both arms. My daughter looked confused, glanced at me, then calmly said, "This is our house." Karen didn't even blink. "This is HOA property, and I'm calling 911. That vehicle is unauthorized." My stomach dropped, not because we did anything wrong, but because I knew what came next. Karen always took things too far. She never liked us, especially after I refused to cut down the tree in my own yard just because she said it. Blocked the neighborhood's aesthetic. My daughter set the bags down slowly. "Ma'am, please don't escalate this." But Karen already had the phone to her ear, yelling, "There's a suspicious person here. Looks aggressive. Send someone now." That's when I saw my daughter take a slow breath. Not scared, not rattled. Just disappointed. I knew that look. It was the same one she gave the last guy who tried to outsmart her in court. Karen hung up and smirked like she had won something. "Good luck explaining why you're parked illegally in an HOA-controlled driveway." I stepped forward. "This is private property, Karen." She laughed. "Not when I'm on the board. You're about to learn how the rules work around here." My daughter looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Great, let's go over the rules together. With the officers." The smirk on Karen's face started to fade just a little. She had no idea who she just called the cops on. Sometimes people don't recognize authority until it steps out of the patrol car wearing a badge with their name on it. 10 minutes later, 2 squad cars rolled up, lights on but sirens off. The neighbors started peeking through their blinds. Karen straightened her back like she was about to win a trophy. "They're here," she said, almost singing it. She walked halfway down the driveway, waving her hand dramatically like she was directing traffic. "Officers, right here." That's the woman who threatened me and refused to move her car. The 2 officers stepped out. One male, one female, calm, professional, eyes scanning. Karen went on, loud as ever. She was parked in front of this driveway illegally, and she got in my face when I told her to move. That's when the male officer looked over at my daughter and paused. He blinked, then looked again. Karen noticed. "Yeah, her. I don't know what you're waiting for. Detain her or give her a ticket, do something." But the female officer nudged her partner and said under her breath, "That's Sheriff Ramirez." Karen's voice cracked slightly. "What did you just say?" My daughter stepped forward slowly, reached into her jacket and pulled out her county badge. "I wasn't going to say anything," she said, holding it up calmly. "But since we're getting law involved, let's do it properly." Karen's face froze, eyes wide, lips twitching like they couldn't decide whether to open or shut. You're not a real sheriff," she stammered. "This is fake." "This is a setup." The male officer stepped between them. "Ma'am, this is Sheriff Ramirez. She's the highest-ranking officer in this county." Now everyone was watching. A neighbor even started recording from across the street. Karen's hands went to her hips, her fake confidence draining like a flat soda. I didn't know," she whispered. My daughter tilted her head slightly. "You didn't care to ask. You just assumed, again." And then Karen made her biggest mistake yet. She snapped, "Well, badge or not, she still violated HOA rules." "I am the acting president." The female officer raised her brow. "Actually, that's not what our system says. HOA president was removed last month after a fraud complaint. That position's still under investigation." Karen's eyes darted back and forth. "That's not possible. I never got a letter. No one told me anything." The officer interrupted her. "Because the complaint was submitted directly by County Legal Affairs." Karen's mouth dropped. And then she slowly turned toward my daughter, who just smiled. "Funny thing about being sheriff, you get to clean up more than just crime. You clean up people like you." Karen stepped back like she'd just been slapped by silence. Her eyes flicked around, searching for someone to side with her. But the street was still and quiet now, except for the quiet hum of a phone recording from across the road. "You're abusing your power," she hissed, trying to recover. "You're just mad because I called the police." My daughter cut her off. "No, Karen, I'm disappointed because you lied to them. You filed a false emergency report. That's a crime." Karen's hands trembled. "I didn't know you were a cop." "And you think that makes it okay?" My daughter asked, calm as ever. "You described me as hostile. Claimed I was threatening you. You made them rush out here over a lie." The male officer stepped in. Ma'am, you used emergency services under false pretenses. That alone is a serious offense. Karen's voice dropped an octave. This is ridiculous. I'm just enforcing the rules. You people always think you're above them. My daughter narrowed her eyes. You people? Karen froze. It slipped out before she could catch it. My daughter stepped forward slowly, her voice lower now. You called the cops on a woman for parking in her own driveway. You lied to emergency dispatch. You threw around fake authority. And now you're showing your real face. Karen's lips parted, but no words came out. That's when I stepped in. She's been harassing us for months, I said. Fake notices on our door. Threatening letters. She even tried to fine us for leaving a kid's bike on the porch. The female officer raised a brow. Do you have any of those notices? I nodded. I kept every single one. And the Ring camera caught her putting up the last one at 2 a.m. Now both officers were fully alert. Can you share that footage with us? The male cop asked. My daughter smiled. Already uploaded to the county server. We've been building a file. Karen gasped. You set me up? No, my daughter replied. You exposed yourself. All we did was press record. Karen's phone slipped from her hand and hit the pavement. That's when the female officer spoke into her radio, calm and clear. Dispatch, we may have a case of impersonation of HOA authority and misuse of emergency services, requesting a supervisor on scene. Karen tried one last time. This is insane. You're all ganging up on me. And then, the most ironic sound in the world, a neighbor's voice from across the street. Hey, Karen, maybe you shouldn't have parked your ego in someone else's driveway. The officers cracked a smile. Even my daughter laughed. Karen stood frozen, cornered not just by law, but by the truth. When you treat everyone like they're beneath you, don't be shocked when one of them turns out to be the sheriff. Karen was breathing hard now, like the world had turned upside down and gravity was suddenly against her. Her mouth kept opening like she was going to say something, but nothing came out. She looked smaller now, like a balloon deflating in slow motion. The supervisor pulled up a few minutes later, an older black woman with short silver hair and mirrored glasses. She stepped out, took one look at the scene, and immediately nodded at my daughter. Sheriff Ramirez. My daughter returned the nod. Supervisor Banks. Karen's face twisted again. Wait, she called a supervisor? That's not fair, this is my neighborhood. Banks turned to her. Ma'am, that's not how this works. You requested emergency services under false claims. You claimed this woman was trespassing. Turns out she owns the house, and she's the sheriff. Karen shook her head. I was just enforcing the rules. Banks didn't even blink. You're not legally on the HOA board anymore. That's already been processed. I never got notified. You refused to sign for the certified letters. 3 of them. Karen's shoulders slumped like they'd been hit with bricks. Supervisor Banks continued. And you've placed at least 9 fake notices on doors in this neighborhood, most of which violated federal housing laws. That's not enforcing rules, that's impersonation. Karen's voice cracked. I was just trying to keep the community safe. Banks stepped forward. By filing fake police reports and racially profiling homeowners, you're not keeping anything safe. You're just loud. For a second, it went completely quiet. Then click. One of the officers turned on his body cam and said clearly, ma'am, for the record, do you acknowledge placing notices under false HOA authority? Karen turned pale. Do you acknowledge lying to dispatch about the nature of the emergency? Karen looked around, searching for someone, anyone, to rescue her. But all she saw were neighbors staring from porches, windows, and behind half-open doors. And none of them were on her side anymore. Finally, she whispered, I didn't know she was the sheriff. Supervisor Banks crossed her arms. That's the problem. You didn't care who she was. You just saw someone you thought you could control. Karen's arms dropped to her sides. My daughter stepped up, her voice cool and final. We're pressing charges. Misuse of emergency services, impersonating HOA authority, harassment, and potential violation of fair housing law. Karen blinked slowly. You're ruining my life. No, my daughter said. You did that yourself. Karen didn't call 911 for help. She called it for power, and she lost both. Karen stood in the middle of our driveway, like she didn't recognize the ground under her feet anymore. Her face had gone from angry to confused to empty. For the first time, she had nothing left to say. Supervisor Banks signaled the officer quietly. Let's escort her. She's not under arrest yet. But she needs to leave this property immediately. That word yet hit her like a gust of cold wind. Karen flinched. Where am I supposed to go? I live 2 blocks down, the officer replied without emotion. Then I suggest you start walking. Karen looked at me, then at my daughter, and finally at the neighbors still watching. She opened her mouth again like she had one last excuse left, but instead, she just turned and started walking away, slowly, head down, like a queen stripped of her fake crown. That's when something crazy happened. One of the neighbors, a quiet guy named Mr. Jensen, who never talked to anyone, stepped out with a folder in his hand. Sheriff, he said, walking toward my daughter, I've got something you might want to see. She raised an eyebrow. What's that? I run a security cam on my garage. Caught her keying a truck 3 weeks ago. Belonged to a visiting nurse who parked here for 10 minutes. My daughter took the folder, opened it, and whistled softly. Time-stamped. Clear angle, perfect. Karen had just turned the corner when Supervisor Banks called after her. Karen, you might want to turn back. We've got a new incident to discuss. Karen stopped. She didn't turn, just stood there frozen like her feet were nailed to the sidewalk. I was trying to protect the community, she shouted without turning around. You were trying to control it, my daughter said. Big difference. Another neighbor called out. You keyed a nurse's car, Karen, while she was helping a cancer patient? Karen didn't reply, just kept walking, faster this time. Supervisor Banks looked at the footage one more time and nodded. We're opening a formal case. Looks like this wasn't a one-time mistake. My daughter sighed, but not from relief, from something deeper. She's not the only one like her out here. She's just the one who finally got caught. I looked at my daughter, feeling something heavy in my chest. Not anger, not even pride, just clarity. You okay? I asked her softly. She smiled, tired but steady. I didn't become sheriff to fight Karens, but I'll do it if I have to. The badge isn't just for criminals. It's for anyone who thinks they're above the truth. By the next morning, the video had already gone viral. Someone had uploaded the footage from their porch camera, Karen yelling, "The cops arriving," my daughter flashing her badge, and that one unforgettable line, "You didn't care who I was. You just saw someone you thought you could control." Over 2 million views. Dozens of comments pouring in every second. Sheriff handled it like a boss. This is why you don't mess with quiet driveways in America. She thought she had power. Turns out power had a badge. Karen's name was being whispered across the neighborhood like a ghost story. By noon, HOA board members had called an emergency meeting, without her. By 3 p.m., she was officially banned from making any enforcement claims until the investigation was closed. And by 5 p.m., a city inspector came by and posted a legal notice on her front door. Under review for multiple HOA and civil violations. The hunter had become the hunted. But here's the part that really got to me. Later that day, a young woman knocked on our door. I didn't recognize her at first, maybe mid-20s, wearing nurse scrubs and holding a coffee cup. She smiled shyly. Hi, I'm the nurse whose car Karen keyed last month. I just wanted to say thank you. My daughter looked surprised. How'd you find out? She held up her phone. TikTok. Your face is everywhere. We invited her in, shared some coffee, and listened as she talked about how scared she was to report Karen back then. I didn't think anyone would believe me, she said. She told me I was lucky she didn't call ICE. My daughter clenched her jaw. That's when I realized this wasn't just about us. Karen had been doing this for a long time. Bullying, lying, threatening people into silence. And finally, someone stood tall enough and legal enough to stop her. By sunset, the street felt different, lighter, like something heavy had finally been lifted. Neighbors we never spoke to before waved at us. One even dropped off a pie. Someone wrote, "Thank you, Sheriff," in sidewalk chalk on our front path. And Karen? Her windows were closed. Her porch was dark. For once, she had nothing to say. When justice shows up wearing plain clothes and a calm voice, the loudest liar always ends up silent. That night, as crickets chirped outside and the porch light glowed over our driveway, my daughter sat quietly on the steps sipping tea. No uniform, no badge showing, just her in the night. You think she'll try something again? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then said, she's the kind of person who only understands walls when they hit one. I sat beside her. Well, she ran face first into a whole courthouse today. She smirked. Yeah. But you know what's sad? If she had just treated people with basic respect, no one would have cared about her HOA obsession. Silence hung for a beat. Then she added, but she needed to feel powerful. That's the scariest kind of person, the one who builds fake rules just to feel tall. The door creaked behind us. It was Mom. She held up a letter. This just got slipped under our mat. My daughter took it and opened it slowly. Inside was a folded piece of printer paper, typed in bold. You think this is over? You messed with the wrong person. No signature. Just a red ink smear across the bottom corner. My daughter's face didn't flinch. She just handed it back. She's spiraling. I stepped up. Want me to report it? No, she said. Let her keep digging. She's not just breaking rules now, she's leaving fingerprints. By morning, the sheriff's department had collected the note. The handwriting matched a previous anonymous threat from months ago. One, neighbors had suspected came from Karen, but no one could prove. Now they had the missing link. Supervisor Banks personally visited us later that day. She placed a folder on our table and opened it with a sigh. 15 total complaints, she said. Across 3 blocks. Threats, fake citations, racial targeting, even forged HOA documents. My daughter's jaw tightened. And thanks to your footage, her latest note, and 2 witness statements, we're upgrading the charges. What kind of charges, I asked. Impersonating a housing authority, she replied, and intimidation with intent to defraud. That one's a felony. I blinked. She could go to jail? Banks nodded. If the DA approves it, yeah. A long silence followed. Then my daughter said softly, I didn't want this to end with prison. Banks looked her in the eye. It didn't end with prison. It ended with truth. What comes after, that's on her. Sometimes justice isn't about punishment. It's about drawing the line and watching who dares cross it. A week later, a quiet calm had settled over the neighborhood. No fake notices on doors, no late-night stomping around with flashlights, no screaming about trash bins or unauthorized flower pots. Just peace. Karen's house sat cold and silent, curtains drawn. Her car hadn't moved in days. A legal notice still fluttered slightly on her porch post. The one from the inspector. Word had spread that she'd lawyered up. The charges were pending, and her so-called HOA rulebook had officially been seized as evidence. But something else happened too. The neighbors changed. People started talking to each other more, not just nodding on garbage days, but real conversations. Kids played longer on the sidewalks. An elderly couple even said they were finally repainting their fence because no one was afraid of getting fined anymore. And in the middle of all that, my daughter stood tall but quietly. No speeches. No, I told you so. She just kept being who she was. A protector. A watcher. A daughter. That Sunday, we had a small get-together on our lawn. Nothing fancy, just iced tea, paper plates, and folding chairs. Someone brought cookies. Someone else played an old radio. Halfway through, a woman I didn't recognize walked up and asked to speak to the sheriff. My daughter stood, cautious but polite. Yes? The woman took off her sunglasses. Eyes red, hands trembling. I'm Karen's sister. A ripple of stillness spread across the group. She's not well, the woman said. She's angry at everything. Always has been. But what you did, stopping her. It was the first time someone really stood up to her. And I just wanted to say, thank you. My daughter didn't gloat. She didn't even smile. She simply nodded. I hope she finds peace. Later that night, as the stars came out and the last of the lemonade was gone, I looked at my daughter and asked her something I'd been wondering all week. Why didn't you arrest her that first moment? You had every right. She looked out at the street, now quiet, now free. Because sometimes the best justice isn't cuffs, she said. It's showing the whole world who someone really is, and letting them live with it. She stood up and stretched, then added one last thing before going inside. I didn't fight for this country just to let people like her rewrite the rules. Especially not in my own driveway. And with that, she stepped inside, calm as ever, while the rest of the block finally rested in the safety she never once demanded credit for. The sheriff didn't just defend her home. She reminded an entire neighborhood what justice really looks like. The end. Subscribe my YouTube channel for more stories.